$1 billion. Let that sit for a second. Not 100 million. Not a record-breaking endorsement deal with a sportswear giant. A full $1 billion, 10 zeros, offered to a 20-year-old girl from Manila who grew up hitting balls on borrowed courts in a country where tennis was never supposed to be anyone's ticket to anything. And the name attached to that number isn't Coco Gauff. It isn't some blue-chip prodigy who was groomed from birth inside a system built to manufacture champions. The name is Alex. Just Alex. A quiet, focused, almost impossibly composed young woman who climbed from ranked 140 in the world to the top 29 in a single year and somehow did it while the rest of the tennis world wasn't even looking. If you want to understand why this moment is genuinely historic, why it goes far beyond sport, far beyond money, far beyond one contract sitting and signed on a table somewhere, you need to hear the whole story. Because this isn't just about what Saudi Arabia offered. It's about what that offer revealed about power, about identity, about the price of being extraordinary in a world that wasn't built with you in mind. Alex was born in Manila in 2005. And right there, from the very beginning, the odds were already stacking up. The Philippines is a country that bleeds basketball, that worships boxing, that has produced legends in nearly every sport imaginable except the one she chose. Professional tennis at the highest level was something Filipinos watched from a distance, on cable TV, featuring people from places with academies and funding and infrastructure and all the invisible machinery that turns talent into titles. None of that existed for her. What existed was a father who saw something nobody else could quite name yet, and a daughter with a kind of belief in herself that doesn't come from comfort or certainty. It comes from somewhere quieter and far more stubborn than either of those things. She earned her way into the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain. And if you don't know what that means, understand that this isn't a place you get into because you know the right people. It's one of the most selective development programs on the planet. You get in because when you step on a court, something undeniable happens. She stepped on that court and something undeniable happened. She absorbed everything. The technique, the tactics, the mental architecture of what it takes to compete at the very top. And then she went out and started winning. Her junior career read like a script someone would reject for being too unrealistic. She became the first Filipino ever to win a Grand Slam title when she claimed the 2022 US Open Girls Doubles. She stacked ITF titles. Her junior ranking climbed to number 1 in the world. The tennis establishment started paying attention the way it does when something unexpected refuses to go away. It leans in, cautiously, waiting to see if this is real or if the bubble is about to burst. Then came the senior tour. This is where the story gets genuinely fascinating because the senior tour is where most prodigies find out what they're actually made of. You're not playing other teenagers anymore. You're playing women who have years of battle-tested experience, who have lost finals and come back, who know exactly how to dismantle someone who hasn't faced real pressure yet. Alex didn't just survive the transition. She accelerated through it. Inside 1 year, she went from outside the top 140 to firmly inside the top 29. She beat Madison Keys, a former Australian Open champion. She pushed Coco Gauff, the reigning US Open title holder, to the absolute edge. And then she did something that sent shockwaves through the sport. She beat Iga Swiatek, the most dominant player of her generation. A result that nobody predicted, nobody penciled in, and honestly nobody was fully prepared to process when it happened. That win didn't just change her ranking. It changed the conversation entirely. Because suddenly Alex wasn't a promising young player to keep an eye on. She was a threat. An actual, legitimate, right-now threat. And when you become that, the entire ecosystem of professional sports starts responding differently to your existence. Sponsors start asking questions. Federations take notice. And somewhere in a glass-walled office in Riyadh, a very specific kind of conversation begins. To understand what came next, you need to understand who Saudi Arabia's public investment fund actually is, because calling them a sports investor dramatically undersells what they represent. The PIF manages somewhere around $700 billion in assets with projections pointing toward $2 trillion by 2030. They bought Newcastle United and turned it into a Champions League club in 3 seasons. They launched LIV Golf and cracked the foundation of professional men's golf wide open. They brought Ronaldo, Benzema, Neymar into their orbit. They secured the WTA finals in Riyadh and locked in a long-term deal that made Saudi Arabia a permanent fixture on the women's tennis calendar. Everything they touch gets repositioned. Everything they enter gets transformed. And they are never in any hurry to explain themselves to anyone who questions their motives. The offer they reportedly put on the table for Alex was not a typical sports deal. It wasn't an appearance fee or a regional sponsorship arrangement. It was architectural. A decade-long personal contract worth $1 billion covering endorsement exclusivity in designated markets, mandatory participation in Saudi-hosted events, brand ambassador duties across the PIF's wider portfolio, content obligations for regional broadcasters, youth development partnerships tied to Saudi tennis infrastructure. And at the center of all of it, her name, her face, her story. The girl from Manila who made it against every odd. Positioned as the defining symbol of Saudi Arabia's effort to present itself to the world as progressive, globally connected, and committed to elevating women. That is where it gets complicated. And the complication is not subtle. Serena Williams played professional tennis for 27 years. She won 23 Grand Slam titles. She became arguably the most recognizable female athlete in the history of sport. Her total career prize money sits around $94 million. With endorsements, her career earnings crossed $300 million. That number represents what women's sport has historically been able to generate for its absolute greatest performer. Saudi Arabia was proposing to give Alex more than triple that before she has won a single major. When a number reaches that scale, it stops being purely financial. It becomes a question only she can answer. What are you willing to become? The reaction came in waves and each one hit harder than the last. Human rights organizations were first. Amnesty International framed the deal as providing credibility to a government whose record on dissidents, journalists, and female activists is extensively and painfully documented. They raised the name of Jamal Khashoggi. They referenced women's rights advocates who were imprisoned for the kind of activism that in any open society would be considered civic courage. Their argument was direct. When a beloved, young, globally visible athlete accepts this kind of embrace from this particular government, she doesn't just sign a contract. She provides cover. Her story, her likability, her underdog journey gets used as the human face of something that has nothing human at its center. Then tennis itself started weighing in. Billie Jean King, who has spent her entire life arguing that female athletes deserve to be paid what their talent is worth, found herself in genuinely difficult territory. She had previously accepted the WTA finals move to Riyadh as a commercial reality of modern sport. But a personal billion-dollar deal for a single player is a different kind of statement. Former champions appeared on podcasts threading needles with their language, trying to hold two things at once. Nobody wanted to tell a 20-year-old woman from Manila to walk away from financial security no female athlete in history had ever been offered. But nobody could fully avoid the question of what accepting it would actually cost. Then the Philippines erupted. And it did not erupt as one voice. Half the country celebrated with the kind of fierce national pride that the archipelago normally reserves for boxing world title nights. A Filipina being told she is worth more than any female athlete in recorded history. That activated something deep and historical in the Filipino consciousness. The other half was furious for reasons just as deeply felt. Because the Philippines has hundreds of thousands of overseas workers laboring in Gulf construction sites under conditions that Filipino labor groups have documented extensively as exploitative. And the argument from that half of the country was precise and uncomfortable. You cannot celebrate this deal and simultaneously claim to stand for the people whose lives it legitimately contradicts. Comment sections became courtrooms. Family group chats split along generational lines. Radio stations ran 3-hour debates. Congressional representatives issued formal statements. All of it surrounding a 20-year-old woman who had not yet said a single public word. 11 days passed. 11 days of training. Of showing up on court, hitting forehands, running lines, doing the work. The only stable surface available when everything around you is spinning is the baseline beneath your feet, and that's exactly where she stayed. When the statement finally came, it was 4 paragraphs. Measured, careful, giving nothing away to either side. She was honored by the recognition. She remained committed to her development. She was evaluating opportunities that aligned with her values. She was grateful for the support of her fans, especially in the Philippines. 4 paragraphs. No confirmation. No rejection. Nothing concrete. The internet parsed every word like it contained hidden code. Aligned with her values. Was that a quiet no wrapped in diplomatic language? Thoughtfully evaluating. Did that mean counterproposals were being drafted, that her team was trying to reshape the terms into something she could accept without the weight of what it represented crushing her? Behind the scenes, the picture was even more complicated. Her father, who has been central to her career from the beginning, was reportedly torn between what this would mean financially for their family across generations and what the association would mean for everything else. Her Rafa Nadal Academy connections brought a European understanding of the PIF controversy into the room. Her Filipino advisors were navigating a domestic political landscape where any answer she gave would be used as ammunition by someone. And underneath all of that calculus was a 20-year-old trying to figure out not just what she wanted professionally but who she actually wanted to be. In a candid sideline moment captured by an ambient microphone at a training session in Madrid, she was heard saying something that cut through everything else like a clean forehand winner. 7 words. I just want to play tennis. I want everything else to be right too, but I just want to play tennis. There is something both heartbreaking and deeply clarifying about that sentence, because it strips the whole story back to its original truth. A girl who loved a sport, who worked for it with everything she had, who never asked to become the center of a geopolitical argument or a symbol of anything beyond what she could do with a racket in her hand. Whatever she decides, and the decision has not been made public yet, what has already happened cannot be undone. The ceiling of what women's sport can generate has been shattered, not cracked, demolished. A number was put on the table that rewrote every assumption the industry had carried for decades about what a female athlete is worth. And it took Alex to get there. Not because she sought it, not because she engineered it, but because she was undeniably, stubbornly, relentlessly herself. A girl from Manila on borrowed courts who just wanted to play tennis and ended up changing the game for every young woman who comes after her. That is the story. And it is far from over.